Yeah. Anyway, it validates some sort of historical kernel that there may have been this Jesus figure.
No, I think there was a historical Jesus. I don't dispute that.
Yeah.
Um, I, I think a historical, in my mind, I don't think it matters if Paul wrote the letters or not. I think that I'm kind of tired of the debates, historicist versus mythicist debates, depending and centering around Paul. So considering that Paul never met Jesus, as far as we know, uh,
Right.
so to me, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't think a historical Jesus depends on Paul's letters. I'm
No.
quite certain that there was a historical Jesus. I'm not skeptical of that.
Yeah.
I've never been a mythicist, but I think the evidence for historical Jesus is enormous, even outside of Paul's letters. I mean, I remember saying recently that even if all we had was Tacitus's annals, and that was it, let's pretend that all the other references to Jesus were never recovered, and all we had was just Tacitus talking about a guy called Christus who was crucified, or Chrestus who was crucified under Pontius Pilate. I'd have no problem believing that, because what I don't like about those debates is that, oh, we have no contemporary evidence for historical Jesus. Well, actually, I would disagree. That the Gospel of Hebrews is as early as I think it is, and also, of course, the creedal statements that we were just talking about are also early. Some of that material, which is in the Hebrew Gospel, that's why I brought up the resurrection, Jesus' appearance to James in the story, in an alleged post resurrection appearance. So I think that those texts are early. I mean, as early as the AD 30s. I don't have a problem with that being really early. But even if the church fathers ever told us about the Hebrew gospel at all, and all that other stuff, and we didn't have the creedal statements, and none of that stuff survived, and all we had was just Tacitus, I would have no problem with it. But because if we say we don't have contemporary evidence for Jesus, therefore he didn't exist, then my response will be, well, what about Judas the Galilean? We have no contemporary evidence for Judas the Galilean, but Josephus mentions Judas the Galilean, but Josephus wrote 60 years later. He was not a contemporary of Judas the Galilean. Josephus was born 30 plus years after Judas the Galilean's death. Does that mean Judas the Galilean didn't exist? Of course not.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I rest my case on that there.